How's it going, Dopamon fans? The 2023 NHL entry draft is over. I just want to give a big thank you to everybody who watched our mock draft, as well as those who came and joined us for the live stream. And in case you missed all of that, any of that, here we are for a recap of the draft.
Yeah, we're gonna go through first round. Basically, it's in its entirety, and then pick and choose our way through the rest of the draft. We don't want to have this maybe a 7-hour video. We want to have this as a quick recap for those of you who didn't join us on the live stream or don't want to go back and sponge through, what was it, 8 hours of live streaming over a couple days, which is a lot for us. So
as much as I'd love to watch your face for 8 hours.
As much as we'd love to go watch it back, we're going to do a quick recap here. Starting first overall, obviously, Connor Bedard was the pick of the draft. 143 points in 57 games. I've said all I need to say about Connor Bedard. Yeah. He's number one.
Yeah, it's
generational talent. The first generational talent, I think, probably since Austin Matthews in 2016.
Yeah, or since McDavid, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, depending on how you look at it. But then the first real surprise.
Yeah, right out of the gate.
Right out of the gate, Adam Fantilli was not picked second overall. It was Leo Carlsson, who some people had sliding a little bit further, but never up past Fantilli.
I didn't see a lot of people guessing Carlson second. A lot of Carlson 3 to 5, but not at second.
Not at second, no.
It seemed like Fantilli was a bona fide number 2, but Anaheim, this is the player that they want, and I have a good feeling that they're looking at their roster top to bottom, and they know that they have Trevor Zegras and Mason McTavish down the middle. Do they need Fantilli? No. And that it shows a lot of confidence in their system that they're like, hey, we don't need maybe a guy. We can bring in a guy who can maybe move to the left wing and be just a dynamic combo with one of these two centers, or maybe make it easy for them. And they're really building for need rather than taking the best player available. Because I think it's very clear that Adam Fantilli, who was drafted third by Columbus, I think it's pretty obvious that he is the bona fide second best or third best if you count Michkov.
Yeah, depending on where you put Matvei Michkov, for sure. But then I think San Jose had their pick. Those were the top three. I think everyone had those top three. And then San Jose had their pick, and they went with Will Smith. They have him as William Smith on HockeyDB, and I think that's really cute. National Team Development Program, 42 points in 20 games in the USHL. This is HockeyDB and not Elite Prospects, so they don't include all of the stats, which is silly. So maybe I should have gone with the EP, but this is not entirely what he did stats-wise, so maybe ignore that. Had a much better time in the U.S. National Team Development Program.
And at the beginning of the season, it was really a toss-up, because the U.S. National Team Development Program had a lot of good centers this year.
Yeah.
And, nobody knew who's going to come out as that number one center, and Will Smith really showed, hey, I'm going to be the number one. He's the most skilled, and after the top three, I think it was pretty clear that Will Smith was fourth.
Yeah. Now, Habs fans, let me talk to you for a second.
Calm down. I already feel all the angry comments in the section being like, David Reinbacher, Carey Price doesn't even know his name. How could he be important? How can he be good?
How can he be good? He was wanting to say Matvei Michkov so bad, and he's like, David... Anyway. David Reinbacher is a good defenseman. Someone called him the best defenseman in the draft. We kind of go back and forth between Reinbacher and the next guy we're going to talk about. But people are mad. They're calling this like an Alex Galchenyuk pick, or, when they passed on Brady Tkachuk. Like
for
instead,
Kotkaniemi.
For Kotkaniemi. I don't think it's quite that.
I think it's the opposite.
No, I think it's a good pick. And I think in a couple years, and I've seen a lot of crap where, he's being bombarded personally on Instagram shit by crazy Habs fans. Stop it. Stop it right now. This kid is really good. You're going to love him in a couple years. He shoots right. He's going to be your top pairing right-hand shot defenseman for years to come.
And he has all the room in the world to grow in the NHL because of his style of play. It fits the modern shutdown defender. He likes to shut guys down in the opposing zone, stops offense from happening before it happens. And on a team like Montreal, all of these great offensive talents, you don't need a guy like Reinbacher to be that number one offensive talent on the back end. You have in Montreal a guy like Lane Hudson, who you could be very happy for, is really good offensively. And Reinbacher's the kind of guy who denies offense coming at him, creates a turnover, gets the puck over to Lane Hudson, and there you go, offense going the other way. He's a good fit for Montreal, and this is the right pick for Montreal. I think a lot of fans, there's a right to be a little bit questioning over, hey, at fifth overall, would Reinbacher have maybe fallen to like 7 or 8? But you know what? It's the draft.
They didn't have a pick past this.
Yeah, this is their first. This is their
This
first
was
and
their
last
one
for
bullet
for a while.
Yeah.
So they have to make it count, get the right guy, and they really did. Reinbacher is the right guy for Montreal. He's gonna be a huge force on the back end. So Montreal fans, you got to come down.
Yeah, they're building from defense out, it seems. They have a lot of their
Mhm.
forward group pretty set right now. They're building out Lane Hudson, Caden Gooley, and David Reinbacher on the back end, and in 2-3 years, that's going to be elite on defense. But
Speaking of defensemen,
Dmitry Simishev, who I think was one of the bigger surprises in the top 10, probably the biggest surprise.
Mhm.
Not that he's this good, but the fact that someone picked him this high.
Mhm.
The first Russian picked,
Yeah.
which is crazy considering who else is in the top
Yes.
10. Dmitry Simishev, 6'4", skates like you would not believe. This kid should not be able to skate the way he does at his size. Again, the stats on Hockey TV don't give the full picture, so ignore that. But
well, that's his those are the MHL.
those are his MHL numbers, but he played in other.
He played in the
leagues.
KHL.
He played briefly in the KHL. He
It's
played
there too.
internationally.
Right there.
Where?
Oh, the KHL.
Oh, it is this year.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just a different color. So
Yeah.
it threw me off. Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't take into account like international stats anyway.
And he shows a lot of poise. At the KHL level, he's not a point producer. He is a defensive defenseman. He's more of an old school defenseman when you comparing him to David Reinbacher. We talk about the two best defensemen. And it's hard to say who is number one because both are the best in their own regard. Neither, Simishev, is as an old school defender, Reinbacher, new kind of shutdown defender. But Simishev, I would rank him a little bit higher personally because I think at 6'4" and just his ability to move himself, he's so mobile, he's so physical, he's poised, he's a great thinker. Just overall, I think he's the better defender right now, at least, especially. Reinbacher, I think maybe there is the hidden ceiling there that maybe he can be better than Simishev, but I think that Simishev is the better defender. Kind of reminds me of Chris Pronger. I don't,
Not in the mean sense.
Yeah, not in the mean sense, but in like just like the way that he's built as a hockey player. It kind of just, I think that he's going to have that kind of impact. And as a defender, Arizona, you got to be happy that you're building a lot of guys. And Arizona's clearly been willing to reach into Russia. But Simishev, this isn't a reach. He deserves to be in the 5 to 10 pick kind of range. He is that good for Arizona. Taking a risk, what seems like a risk on a guy who is actually the best player at this spot, I think it's great for them because they're going to need it as an organization. They suck. And Simishev's pretty good.
They need talent, first and foremost. Yeah. Speaking of talent.
A lot of talent.
Matvei Michkov at 7, to the Philadelphia Flyers drops so far because of a lot of the things surrounding him. The contract, I think, is what did it mainly for teams.
For sure.
But Philadelphia, dude, if you're a Flyers fan, be happy with this.
Be happy and patient.
Happy and patient, yes. The Flyers are going to suck for a couple years. But what also means Michkov isn't going to be able to influence the team's production over the next couple years. And they're going to continue to suck and get more picks.
Yeah.
And maybe sneak into the lottery at some point.
And then when Michkov comes in, it's going to be like this all just like a comet falls out of the sky and the hockey gods are going to rain down.
It's going to be like when Kaprizov came over or when Panarin came over. Except they're top draft picks.
And he's going to be younger, and they're going to have more control over him.
Yeah.
Because they'll be in the first years of his entry-level contract.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly how the years work for that. I think after a certain age, you can only sign him to a 2-year and then a 1 year or whatever. But Incredible pick. This might be the second best player in this group, and he drops all the way to Philadelphia.
And he
got so close to Washington, dude. Oh my god,
that would have been pretty funny.
So
I understand why a guy like Simashev is more draft safe. Simashev is the more complete player. There is a lot to Michkov's game that you still need to develop out to make not just an impact at the NHL level. He will make an impact, but is he going to be a generational talent in the NHL? A team like Philadelphia has to say, hey, I'm not going to have control over him for the next 3-4 years. His development is out of my hands. So they really got to be not just patient, but willing to kind of let that development, not be involved in it, because who knows? There is a little bit of risk involved. And for some teams, maybe Montreal said, hey, you know what? I don't want to take that risk. I want to take a guy who's a little bit draft safer. I know he's a more complete player. I don't have to worry about a particular part of his game not filling out because I'm not there to teach him.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to Washington, though, like we said, Ryan Leonard. A lot of people had this guy a little higher, snuck up on a lot of people's boards. I think he's great. He's a right winger. He's tenacious on the puck, kind of. He's a goal scorer. He doesn't blow people up with his body checks or anything, but he's hard to move, and he's
puck hungry.
He's puck hungry, and I think he's perfect for Washington. In a couple of years when they don't have a guy like Tom Wilson, they need to kind of fill that void that he'll leave, and he's not the same player by any means, but he's a good adjacent replacement.
And the way I put it, that they have Ovechkin passing off to Marishnichenko and Tom Wilson passing off to Ryan Leonard. Like, they have a very similar, just in a way, like a chemistry in the way that the team's built, at least. There's clearly a philosophy there, and this is the draft pick that fits their philosophy. Whether it works or not, whatever, but this is their pick. I think it is the perfect pick for them.
Nate Danielson to Detroit, who I was surprised about here as a top 10 pick. I had him in my top 15 or so, but I was expecting mid-teens. Mid-teens, early teens, but Detroit takes him here at center at 9, and I guess Stevie Y isn't afraid of pulling the trigger on the guys that they really like. Yeah. He doesn't care. It's worked for him so far. Mo Seider was a surprise to a lot of people, including myself at the time, at where he was picked. And Nate Danielson, hopefully, is going to be the next guy. 78 points in 68 games to the Brandon Wheat Kings. He's their captain, I believe. Safe. I think a really safe pick.
Very safe. Because
he's going to play in the NHL one day.
His floor is among the top 10 to 15, probably one of the highest. But his ceiling isn't quite there. But I think a team like Detroit has a lot of that elite talent hidden that a guy like Nate Danielson unlocks as a center. He's going to connect these guys. He's going to bring out the best in Lucas Raymond, best in Philip Zadina. These guys are going to score because a guy like Danielson's going to lead them and help them be their best self. So I think for Detroit, it's the right pick. On and off the ice, he's going to be a great impact player. Stevie Y knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Until proven otherwise, we're going to trust in Steve Yzerman here. And Dalibor Dvorsky, we both had going to St. Louis, rounds out the top 10. Surprising in the sense that he didn't fall, I think.
Yeah.
Had a weird year production-wise, but I think everyone kind of saw through that.
Yeah.
Especially St. Louis.
Yeah. There are times when a player kind of bounces around in a system, they go up and down, and they don't really get to show at the pro level their full game. Dvorsky kind of fell a little bit into that internationally. He was big, and I think that also had a huge factor, that because he shows up at the big time and stuff, he's, you watch him internationally, a year younger, he's outshining a guy, Slavkovsky, a year younger, who went first overall, and we're looking at him like, damn, okay, 82 games, hey, maybe you're going to struggle, whatever, but in the 16 wins it takes to hoist a cup, hey, you're going to bring it. And a guy like Dvorsky, I think he has that potential, especially in St. Louis, that's going to roll their forwards a lot. I think he's a center that's going to get a lot of attention. There. Yeah.
He fits really well there.
He's going to thrive under the pressure.
Vancouver picked the third defenseman off the board. A little higher than I was expecting this guy, and not the first Swede I was expecting. Tom Willander goes ahead of Axel Sandin Pellikka. Different kind of defenseman than Pellikka is. And again,
a better skater.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Better.
Not with the puck, but overall.
Yeah, better. Yeah, I don't even know if I would call him a better skater. It's close.
Yeah,
but two different styles of defensemen. So Sandin Pellikka is all offense, able to run a power play. Willander is kind of more of a two-way guy. He plays a little bit better in his own zone. He's able to neutralize plays and able to neutralize the cycle very well.
Yeah. And I think he's a smart skater too. And maybe Pellikka, he is a great skater, but doesn't use it the right way. Where Willander, he will beat guys, defending on the rush. He's able to match them one-on-one very well, match their leg work because he's just a good skater and he knows how to use it. And for Vancouver, they're going to need responsibility on the back end, and Tom Willander's very responsible. Talk about some of I compare him a little bit to Reinbacher in that they're very smart players who see the ice very well, and Vancouver needs that, responsible defenseman. Clear, a guy like Luke Shen, for instance, who they traded out, going, forward in the future, who are they going to have to pair with a guy like Quinn Hughes? I think Tom Willander's absolutely a candidate, not today, but, looking in 5 years from now when we're talking about keeping Vancouver competitive, he'll show up and he'll be a guy that will get that opportunity.
Absolutely. The third Russian off the board, Daniil But.
This is a little bit of a shock. I know
Yes.
A lot of people ranked him this high, and he absolutely does have the skills and abilities to be ranked this high. But... big but. I think there's a lot missing in the way that he sees the game. That he misses a lot of the opportunities that I think are out there for him, and like a smarter hockey player who sees the ice a little bit better will capitalize on things that the puck will be right in front of him. All he has to do is pull the trigger, and he just either doesn't, forgets to, doesn't think to, doesn't see it. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity here because he is 6'5" and he can move like an acrobat on the ice. He is really physically very well gifted. He has all the talents. He can shoot, he can pass, he can do everything so well. But can a team teach him to, play the game of hockey rather than just, do all the skill things? And I think there's a lot of development that needs to go into him, but the potential's absolutely there to be a top 6 player.
Can Arizona unlock this kind of potential?
And that's where I'm not so sure. I know that Arizona's been willing to dip into Russia, but this seems like a little bit of a stretch for their development, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a reach here, but this could hit. This could very much hit. Or it could be the only player in the future that doesn't have a very good looking Hockey DB page. We'll see. Zach Benson was picked right afterwards. Love Zach Benson, man.
Yeah.
Zach Benson, small, doesn't play like it. Doesn't really play like it. Good two-way guy. Skates well. 98 points in 60 games with Winnipeg Ice next year. They're going to be I think they're the Wenatchee Ice next year. They're moving out of Winnipeg. Oh, okay. But going to be fun to watch that team next year, especially. And now Buffalo has both Matt Savoy and his line mate and teammate, Zach Benson, which is sick.
It kind of just fell to them, too. In my opinion, Zach Benson is one of the more improved players in this draft. He was already seen as a top 10, 15 kind of pick. And I was hoping that the two-way side of his game would just get more rounded. At the beginning, I was like, hey, he's got a lot of talent, but can he make it work effectively game in and game out? And I'll admit, I wasn't so sure at the beginning of the year, and wow, did he completely blow me away and how much better he got. He's an impact player across 200 feet of ice. Every shift, every spot, every corner, he's always doing the right thing, making it count. And I think Buffalo had this one just completely land in their pocket.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, wow, we have a chance to... Who's available?
Yeah, Zach Benson.
Pittsburgh. Best shooter in far in the draft.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. One of the best shooters, not named Connor Bedard. Pittsburgh doing it again.
Mm-hmm.
Or not Pittsburgh. Dubas doing it again. Pittsburgh themselves haven't had a first-round pick in a while, but I think they hit on one here. Stats won't show it, but he can shoot the puck, and in a couple years at the end of Crosby and Malkin's career, he's going to have a fun rookie season.
Oh yeah. He's like you said, his stats can be very deceptive. He is a goal scorer. He can do it, and he's trying to pick up his playmaking game. There's absolutely an effort there. You can see in the stats, he scored less goals because he was making more passes. Personally, when I compare him to players that I talked about before, I didn't see as much development as I liked out of him, but the goal scoring is undeniable because you need to score goals to win. And I think that Pittsburgh can use a guy like him on their team. And like you said, a rookie season, I think is going to be great if Crosby or Malkin are still on this team.
Matthew Wood for the Nashville Predators. Big Matthew Wood, big right winger, 6'4", 193. University of Connecticut. Had a great season, almost a point per game. You don't see that for a lot of freshmen being that successful for the University of Connecticut this year. Came from the BCHL. Confused me. I thought he was American. You corrected me during the screen. He is Canadian. He was just playing in the American University NCAA system, so that threw me off. But
much like Adam Fantilli, I do think that there's going to be a trend now. We've all seen American players coming to the CHL because the American development program hasn't been as great. But now we're going to see the opposite, where Canadians are starting to go, hey, look at these great. The NCAA program is incredible. Fun. This is amazing hockey. Yet sometimes it can be compared. It's a higher level than junior hockey in Canada.
Sometimes, yeah. And so, the high end university teams. I think. Yes. I mean, the ages are different,
of course.
The CHL is used as a development league versus the NCAA, which is way more competitive, I think, in that sense. Definitely, I agree. You start to see a lot of Canadians head down there. And Matthew Wood for the Nashville Predators. Barry Trotz telling his scouting staff, hey, swing for the fences. I'll find you your bottom 6 forwards. You go out and find me a top 6 forward. With skill for the future. And Matthew Wood, I think, could definitely be that guy.
Yeah, he's a big guy. I like to compare him to Mark Stone. I like to be a little bit more higher on young player comparisons. But I feel like if there is one to compare to Mark Stone this year, we always talk about a Mark Stone type. It's him. He can really control the pace of play. He thinks 2-3 steps ahead on passes. You can really see his vision developing in the way he sees passes and plays. He's got really quick hands, and he's 6'4". He can be a little bit lanky and kind of like a giraffe on the ice. But I do think that I've seen him grow throughout the year a lot. He's still physically, he's grown like an inch. I think there's another edge to filling out into his body that once he picks up that speed, both his hands and his feet being faster, this is a really good pick for Nashville.
Where are we? Samuel Honzek for Calgary. Another pick that you got right in your prediction. Beats me overall, I think, in terms of amount of correct mock draft picks. Samuel Honzek you had going to Calgary and just fits well. WHL player, another Slovakian, another top Slovak prospect. It's going to be fun to see that international team, hopefully at the Olympics, fingers crossed, in 5 to 10 years when all these players are in their prime.
And if you're Calgary, you haven't had reasons to be happy the past 2 seasons. You've seen a lot of players stating, hey, they want out Brady Tkachuk, Johnny Gaudreau, now you get Elias Lindholm. The names are just coming off. You need a guy that commits to the team. And Samuel Honzek, shift in, shift out. He's all about commitment. He's a middle 6 guy. I don't think the ceiling there for, top end potential. He's not going to be that, and he's not going to get 80, 90 points by any means, but he's going to fight for the puck. He fights to get it down the ice. He's all about, getting the team offensive zone possession. So the guys who do score 80, 90 points can have an easier time on the ice and aren't under a lot more pressure.
Axel Sandin Pellikka finally goes at 17 to the Detroit Red Wings. And I think they get a steal of a player at 17. A lot of people had them in their top 10. And this, I think, is one of those guys who went, oh, he fell to us. Might as well pick him.
Yeah.
A lot of people saying, oh, Detroit doesn't pick defensemen under 6 foot. They like big defensemen on the back end.
Nope.
Breaks the mold a little bit here. He's 5'11", so he's a little bit under 6 foot, but he is.
And he plays just a little bit smaller too.
A little bit smaller, but he can like walk the line like no one else in his
Oh,
draft on a power play.
He's the best puck controller in the puck controlling defenseman in this draft.
Yeah, and I hate player comparisons, but just for this one aspect of his game, he's very Cale Makar-like with that ability to change direction and use these little micro adjustments to walk the line on a power play and still control the puck.
And manipulate forwards to go one way, get going the other way, open up a passing lane, passing opportunity, make that pass, and then score.
Yeah. Will he be Cale Makar?
No.
Full stop. But that little aspect of his game reminds me of Cale Makar, is what I'm saying.
And the rest of his game is why he fell, because his offensive talent is worthy of a top 10 pick. But the rest of his game, hey, it's not as amazing defensively. I think there's still a lot of work. He is young. Defense is hard. But I think that there's still some risk involved to him just kind of being a really good power play guy, second pairing D. He's maybe not a top pairing guy, so that's why he wasn't picked in the top 10 like Reinbacher was, for instance.
Yeah. That's the separation there. Winnipeg, Colby Barlow, and his mustache are going to the Winnipeg Jets. 18th overall. I think that's a great spot for him. First OHL player gone, I believe. Mm-hmm. He was going to be the first OHLer gone with a lot of people's mock drafts and everything and rankings. You didn't like this pick. I remember right at the beginning. You're like, I don't know about that for Winnipeg. But upon further reflection, when we were talking about it, I think I've come around on it too.
It's good for the team. I get why they picked him because he's obviously the best pick.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he's a great fit in Winnipeg. But okay, like, hey, for them, they're like, I don't care, I'll take the best player available. No problem at all.
2 years from now, 3 years from now, when he's breaking in the league, and he might be sooner. He can,
he's a very NHL ready style of game.
Yeah. He's one of the more NHL ready guys in this range. But 2-3 years from now, who knows what Winnipeg could look like? So I'm not going to sit here and try to fit him into their lineup. Blake Wheeler just got bought out today.
Yeah,
could replace him in the shorter term, right? Big kind of, he's a shooter, not a playmaker, but could fit that role on the right wing for them. Sure. Oliver Moore at 19. Chicago, have a day. Have a day, Chicago. Best skater in the draft outside of Bedard. They got the top two, actually, in the first round.
He's absolutely like the best, the fastest skater.
Yeah. Good shot, good offensive playmaking abilities, too.
Because there's a reason why a guy this fast will drop, and it's because while he might be one of the best skaters, he doesn't know how to use his speed and skating. And there are times where he's ahead of the play just because he's jumping the gun. And hey, look, the passing lane that would have been there if you were 5 feet back, then accelerated, isn't there now because you're 5 feet ahead and you're going way too fast.
Yeah, he's showing off like what he can do, I think, at his draft year level. But once he gets into development cycle and he's brought in to the Chicago Blackhawks, he's with Connor Bedard.
Yeah,
he's gonna see that. Oh, okay, I can control. He's gonna learn how to control that speed and funnel it as something good offensively.
Yeah. And I'm not sure.
And then he'll always have that break-in speed if he needs to get back on a defensive play. He can go 100% and fly back, right?
And I'm not sure if it's him trying to just show off in his draft year, so he's trying to always show off, or if it's something. Not what I mean. But either way, the potential's there.
Yeah.
That once he figures it out, once the team gets him there, because he's still got great tools. By all means, he deserves to be a top 20 pick in this draft. But there is still the developing, turning that speed into something effective.
Seattle at number 20 picks Edouard Chalet. And this is a guy I think people could have seen dropping even further. But Seattle and I like his upside. Played in the Pro Czech League this year for the majority of the season. Didn't look totally out of place as an 18-year-old.
Nope.
17, 18-year-old at the beginning of the year. Great pick for Seattle. They haven't obviously been around very long, so we don't know what they're going to look like in 2-3 years. I don't think they do. They don't have really a plan yet. They're still starting on that plan for development for the future, and I think Chalet is a perfect guy to start that prospect system out because
Mm-hmm.
Matty Beniers was their first pick, their highest pick, and Shane Wright is obviously there too. But both those guys are going to be in the NHL.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
very soon.
Mm-hmm.
Like Wright, both of them have. Beniers obviously just won the Calder. Wright is going to probably play in the NHL for the most of the season next year.
Mm-hmm.
Sally's getting like 2 or 3 years away.
Yes.
He's going to be the first guy that's like down the line. He's in their pipeline now.
The way I called him a pet project.
Yes.
And I think he has all the skills. That's why he got to spend the entire year in the top Czech Pro League. But there's the same reason that he didn't score any points in the playoffs. It's an attitude issue. He has all the tools, but doesn't use it. You know, he's not engaged. He doesn't go hard into the corners. He's not hard on the puck. Doesn't go for those second chances. He's just not doing the things he needs to be successful. And he absolutely could have gone way higher in this draft because the upside is for sure there. He's gonna, he has all the skills to be that top 6, the next big Czech scoring winger. Like, he can be that top 6 forward, but he chooses not to be. And I think for Seattle, who's trying to develop that identity, you talked about, we don't know what they're going to look like in 2-3 years. They're a team that can take a guy like this and say, we're going to mold him into that and teach him this new identity because he needs a new identity too. And they're both guys that, like, the team and the player need to, develop something, and it's a good project for them because I think that there's absolutely upside because he's going to play with Beniers or Wright one day.
Yeah, we decided he didn't have any player or team rights. A team in the CHL didn't have his rights in. Was it this guy we looked at?
No, it was Rangers Rulers.
I would have. Yeah, it was Rangers Rulers. I don't know whether he has a team in the CHL he could go to.
That would be really good for him.
I would consider bringing him over, almost right away for next year.
Yeah.
Because you never know. It could be the system he's playing in.
For sure.
Some teams in Europe, they kind of mess with younger kids in the sense that they're not a development team. They're trying to win, right, in their league. So it makes developing prospects in another organization in Europe a little weird sometimes. So I would bring him over personally.
Mm-hmm. I agree completely. He needs to be here learning the style of game too as well.
Yeah, and be able to develop that. It's an attitude issue. What we said, It might not be.
Mm-hmm.
It might just be how he's told to play and where he's told to be.
Yeah,
we don't know that obviously because we're not involved in. I think it was Brno. I closed it, but Brno. We're not involved in that team, so we don't know. I'd like to see if it's true or not. Mm-hmm. I'd like to bring him over here to wherever, the Barrie Colts or whoever has his rights.
And that's what I think separated a guy like Samuel Honzek. And I think there's a lot of comparison as being the top Slovak and the top Czech players in this draft, that there was a lot of comparison between the two and which one's going to be the better prospect. And I think Honzek, while he doesn't have that skill, he came over here, he learned the style of game and the attitude, and he has that kind of style of play that you look at and you say he's an NHL player.
Yeah.
And Saleh, there's a lot to say, hey, he's not yet. So,
moving on. Minnesota selects Charlie Stramel, which I was super
God, his
surprised.
picture's amazing.
I have not seen this Hockey DB picture yet. You know what? I'm on board.
I'm on
board with this
just
picture.
Change your mind immediately. Yep,
change my mind in a moment. No, I wasn't a fan of this pick. I think he should have dropped a little further than this. But there's still a lot that he showed last year that I think people are looking at, kind of like the Cameron Allen effect.
Yeah, and I think also you were talking about being in the wrong program. I don't think the University of Wisconsin is getting the best out of him. He kind of reminds me of Brad Lambert. The way he's just out of place in the system. He's not getting the right areas to thrive, and as a result, teams are looking at him and seeing him fail a lot and just not seeing him at his best. But I think Minnesota did, you look at him last year and you say what he can do, and if we're able to get that out of him, I think he's going to be a great middle six option for them.
Yeah, Minnesota knows what they're doing generally with prospects. They have a good staff over there, John Brackett and all those guys. So,
and I think especially for developing guys that are in that middle six kind of range, they're really good at getting the best out of them.
Yeah. I want to see him play at the World Juniors this year and really take over. That's what I want to see. Oliver Bonk. Philadelphia Flyers took a bunch of guys who were second-generation hockey families. They took, I don't know if we'll talk about it, but they took Mike Knubel's kid later on. in the 6th round, I think. Cole Knuble?
Yeah, Cole Knuble.
But they take Oliver Bonk, who is the son of Radek Bonk, Ottawa Senators legend.
Yeah.
40 points in 67 games this year for the London Knights. I don't love this pick, but Philly obviously likes this kind of player. He's gonna be I think he's gonna be an NHL guy. I just don't know about his upside. He just seems like a player to me.
Yeah. He kind of reminds me of the style of play of Reinbacher, but not as good, which worries me because if it's not done effectively, it becomes kind of just you're a bottom pairing good defenseman. Yeah. Penalty killer. He's going to be a great penalty killer in the NHL. But is there going to be an upside? And are you going to look back and say, hey, did we use a first round pick on just a guy who's a bottom pairing guy who's a little bit easier to replace in free agency, for instance? You know, your 6'7" D. Exactly. Anytime,
defenseman, right? At any time. And no, they obviously saw some sort of upside, and Philly needs guys, man. Philly's in for a rough couple years, I think. Gabe Perreault. What happened there? Gabe Perreault for the New York Rangers.
The highest scoring U.S. National Team Development Program player of all time.
Yeah, and it's not here. This is just his USHL stats. But I think it was 126 points. I don't remember. It was the most single season points by a player ever. It's not Austin Matthews. It's not Jack Hughes, Cole Caulfield. It's this kid. Which is kind of crazy considering how much of a difference there's going to be between a guy like Austin Matthews and Gabe Perreault, I think, in the future. Or Jack Hughes, or whoever you want to compare him to, as far as top American players are concerned. But I think
he's actually Canadian. He was born in Quebec.
He was born in Quebec.
Yeah.
Well, I guess because he's the son of Yannick Perreault.
Yeah, Yannick Perreault.
He was probably born in Montreal.
Raised in the U.S.
Okay, and then he's probably dual citizenship. That's why this is happening. Because he played for the U.S. national team program, which leads me to believe he's American.
Yeah.
But HockeyDB says it's Canadian. Whatever. He's dual citizen. American-Canadian winger. Scores a lot. We'll see how much of that was how good the program has been and how much it's improved over the last couple of years since a guy like Jack Hughes was in that system. Because it could just be that. It could be a combination of who he's playing with.
He is playing with a lot of good talent players right now that Jack Hughes wasn't when he was leading it more. And Gabe Perreault is more... He is very, very, very skilled as a player. But he's not a great skater. And it really does project at the NHL level to kind of hold him back in that you need to be able to not only just move the puck fast, but move your feet while moving the puck fast. Which is a completely different, to be able to move fast, and be going and do all the things and get around defenders. And if he isn't able to translate, at all to the NHL level, is he just going to score a lot at the AHL? It's just going to be a power play, depth scoring winger who you can't rely on in all these 5-on-5 situations because he's just not fast enough. And obviously at 18, there's still a lot of room for growth, but to be the top scorer and then, fall a little bit to 23rd, that is a huge drop. Cole Caulfield dropped because he was small.
Yeah.
Gabe Perreault's dropping because he can't skate. Hopefully we're wrong on both.
Neither could his dad.
Yeah, right.
Which is funny. Right. Yannick Perreault wasn't the best skater. The fastest skater. But he decided to go, I'm going to be a defensive all-star. Gabe Perreault kind of went the opposite way. Yeah. He's like, I can't skate, and I'm going to put the puck in the net instead. So we'll see if that translates to the NHL in the long term. Tanner Molendyk, the Nashville Predators. Defense factory in Nashville is always pumping out NHL defensemen. Could be the next one here. 6 foot even here. Saskatoon Blade, left-hand shooting defenseman. I think he's at right-hand shooting during the stream at the time. He's a lefty. Classic me. 37 points in 67 games. Not the highest offensive numbers you'd expect for a guy in the first round, but I think could be an NHL defenseman. Not unlike, I almost called him Radek Bonk, Oliver Bonk.
Oliver, yes.
Not unlike him in the sense
very similar.
He's probably going to play in NHL games at some point, but how much upside he has, I think, remains to be seen. But it's Nashville.
Yeah, it's Nashville. I have a good feeling that they're going to get the best out of whatever. We know he's going to be an NHL defender, but how good Nashville will prove, good enough.
Otto Stenberg to the St. Louis Blues.
And I love this guy.
I love
He
this
can
pick,
do
too.
everything, a lot of everything, and I think a lot of the jack of all trades can do everything, guys. If you're in Canada, you go 10 picks higher. this is
Yeah.
this is if you played in the WHL,
This
like if
is
Samuel
Swedish.
Hunt,
This is Swedish Nate Danielson.
yeah, this is Swedish, exactly. This is right. So you could have gone. I feel like this is a little bit of a steal for St. Louis. A guy just kind of they fell to him. He said, "Yeah, this is the best guy. He can do everything. He's very responsible." I got my first look at him at Hlinka, where Leo Carlson wasn't there, so Otto Stenberg really had to take the mantle as the number one center. And obviously, he doesn't have that elite talent. But I think that a team, we're looking at St. Louis, and we talked about having Dalibor Dvorsky there, and if they're going to be rolling, 3 or 4 lines or whatever, Otto Stenberg's a guy that you can absolutely rely on in all those 5-on-5 situations. Is he going to score? Maybe not, but you know that the puck isn't going to go in your own net, and that's for sure, and Stenberg's very reliable in that sense. I think it's a great pick for St. Louis.
Quentin Musty, Alex's favorite prospect.
My favorite name in the draft.
Quentin Musty, on the younger side, still 17. He's a July 6th baby. Left-hand shooting for the Sudbury Wolves. 78 points for them this year. I like this pick for San Jose.
This is the first time we had the biggest difference between us in a prospect.
Yeah, I like Quentin Musty's game. He's a little bit of a prick. He plays hard. He can score goals. He can, work hard along the boards as a kind of a bigger winger. He's 6'2". He's not gigantic, but he's heavy. He plays heavy.
Very heavy.
And you might not like his upside offensively, and I get that for sure, but I think there's something there offensively that San Jose is going to be able to get out of him, especially with a guy like William Eklund possibly as a future center partner. The playmaking ability he possesses and the work ethic of a guy like Quentin Musty, I think, just pairs well.
You did sell me on the idea of being a good complementary player.
Yeah.
You put Will Smith, William Eklund, and Quentin Musty, I can see it. But like him as an individual, I always felt like I just wanted more out of him because everybody said, look how good he is. And then I watch him like, He's classic power forward to me. He's he did improve his game in the second half of the season, especially defensively. I think that there's absolutely a really high floor on him. He's going to be an NHL player, but I don't see the ceiling. And hey, maybe, like you said, he doesn't need to be. He can be that third guy on a line that just makes it a good, good compliment, and maybe more like a Tom Wilson's effect on a line where he doesn't have to score to help the other team score.
He makes room out there for other people. Callum Ritchie. We were this close. Toronto. We were this close to greatness. Colorado Avalanche are the beneficiaries here. Good center for the Oshawa Generals, right-handed center, point per game out there. I think if you had told me that Callum Ritchie was going to be 27th overall, 27th, I would have lost my mind and thought he would have had a terrible year or got hurt in some catastrophic way, or I think the rest of the group just kind of shrunk back in around him, and he ended up
in a way
sliding slightly. I had him in my top 15 at the start of the year.
I think if you're going to rank him, he, on every team's list, ranks higher.
Yeah.
But he isn't every team's kind of player. He's not a traditional, I guess he's more traditional in a way, a playmaker, but he's not the new age kind of playmaker who's fast, who's quick with the puck, and creates these crazy plays, dekes a guy out, makes a big pass. Callum Ritchie's just his vision. He's patient, he watches, he lets the puck come to him, whether it's a pass from a teammate, a puck retrieval, and he's quick, he's a good skater, so he makes those chances happen, but it's more about how he makes plays away from the puck than how he makes plays with the puck. And I think that his style of game is just a little bit different, and for that reason, teams were less like, I like him, but he doesn't fit our mold, and Colorado was like, you know what? He fits our mold. So he happened to fall for that reason. To the right team, I think, but
to the right team.
Toronto would have taken him too.
Yeah, Colorado is a good team for a guy like that, for sure. Speaking of Toronto, our boy, Easton Cowan. 53 points in 68 games. So London Knights. Easton Cowan. Not who I was expecting them to take at 28 here. There were guys that had way of a much higher ceiling, but I've come around on my opinion here. I think I like this pick. This is their guy. They didn't have an opportunity to trade down. We saw Tree Living working the phones really hard. My guess is they didn't get what they wanted as far as a trade down is concerned. It was too far out of range for still taking a guy like Easton Cowan. I like him. He's a left wing. I think he's going to be a left winger. He's listed as a right winger with the off shot, left-handed shooter on the right wing. I think he's going to be a left winger, and I can see, him playing well with a guy like Fraser Minton in the future, who's a really smart center, who's going to be, I think, an NHL player in the future. And I think he'll fit well. And he works so hard. He's probably the hardest worker they could have picked in this draft at this point. He works his ass off. He's a good skater. He can play. He can make plays. He can work in along the boards. He's not afraid of anything. He's a playoff performer, which is something the Toronto Maple Leafs need desperately. So,
and you're talking about hard workers.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about motivation. This kid, his childhood hockey player, his hockey hero, is Mitch Marner.
That messed me up.
Mitch Marner. Because, Mitch Marner's younger than us.
Yeah. That messed me up a little bit. When I heard, as a kid, I idolized Mitch Marner. I'm like,
Mitch Marner's a baby face.
He's a child. What do you mean? Don't you mean
when I was
Matt Sundin? And then I had a little bit of a
existential crisis.
Bit of an I'm old crisis. But I like this pick. We'll see what happens with him in the future. He'll be good for the Leafs.
And he'll compete hard. He's going to be there. You want to light a fire under his ass even more. Send him to the Leafs, his favorite team. He wants to be here. He's going to want to fight. He's going to be puck hungry. He's going to want it, and you're going to get the best out of him.
Yeah, one of those grew up a Leafs fan kind of picks. And there's
I don't know where
pictures
Strathroy is, but he's from here.
From Strathroy? I don't know where Strathroy is either.
Number 29.
Number 29, Theo Lindstein in the third St. Louis Blues pick. Already gets Dvorsky and Stenberg, and now they have Theo Lindstein, another Swede. So they went hard on the European prospects this year.
The ones playing in Sweden.
Dvorsky, obviously Slovakian. 32 games in the Swedish Hockey League this year. The SHL. Only 2 points, but that's not an indication of what he is.
No, he's a defensive defenseman.
He is, but not 2 points in 40 games defenseman.
No, and it's really hard to play defense. And it's even harder to play the defensive side of defense. We look at these guys who are scoring, in the OHL, I think it was 60 points for Lukas Dragashevich, who gets drafted later, spoiler alert. But he isn't, when you're playing at a pro level, the level, the intensity that's on you, and if you want to take these defensive responsibilities, which Lindstein does, game in and game out, playing at the pro level, we see he's at -3. He's playing 5-on-5, and he's not letting these goals against. He shows a lot of maturity, and there's a lot of upside here. He doesn't have any offensive upside. I think that's why on a lot of people's draft boards, he fell out of the top 15 where he was at the beginning of the year, kind of into the second round. But I think St. Louis is a team that, hey, this is their third first-round pick. They're not reaching too far because he does have the potential, and I think he's the type of defenseman that they're going to get the best out of. Because they've taken a few defensemen that I think were kind of meh and turned them into pretty good guys.
Absolutely. Bradley Nadeau to the Carolina Hurricanes, and this is a Hurricane.
Yeah, it's a Hurricane pick.
I just had Carolina Hurricanes written all over him. Bradley Nadeau, a BCHL player, so his number's a little bit inflated. 113 points in 46 games 54 games for the Penticton Vs. From New Brunswick, he had 35 points in 17 playoff games. He's offensive. He's not that big, even though he's 5'10". He plays a little smaller.
He does play small.
Maybe that is part of the reason why he's in the BCHL. I don't know, but It'd be interesting to see. I don't know where he's playing next year. It doesn't say on how is he committed somewhere.
I don't remember.
Me neither. But wherever he does play, I'm curious to see how he plays in that league, because the BCHL is a great league, but it's always one of those, how good are they really, or were they just the best player on their team and Penticton?
Yeah, because it's Junior A, the level of competition is not as high.
Good pick for the Hurricanes, though.
Great pick.
I think overall, it's going to be good wherever he does play.
And Carolina's good at getting those wingers to their top level.
Yeah.
I feel like, a guy like even Sebastian Aho, who came in as a winger, you were like, nope, you're so good, you just moved to center.
Yeah, and he was a second-round pick. So he was 34th, and this is 30th, so you could kind of compare those two. Maybe they see something in him. And Bradley Nadeau, future Carolina Hurricane. Mikhail Gulyayev at 31 to the Colorado Avalanche. This is the pick they traded into from Montreal for the Alex Newhook deal. So getting good value for a trade from a prospect that they took so high in Alex Newhook at the time. What you have no more about Gulyayev than I do.
Yeah, he, in my opinion, is tied with Tom Willander's being the best skater among defensemen in this draft. I think he's of the three best offensive defensemen, with Axel Sandin Pellikka and Lukas Dragashevich, and when you kind of mix in, he's great offensively, great skater. I see a lot of potential here, but there's also a lot of downside, which is why he fell. You look at how could the best defensive skater in the draft kind of fall. As good as he is offensively, he's got great skills, but he doesn't see the ozone as well as a guy like Sandin Pellikka does. Pellikka, he'll dance in the offensive zone blue line and then make a great pass. Gulyayev, he can skate, he can do all the things, but he's not making the best passes, he's not making the best decisions. So an NHL team looking at that says, okay, yeah, he's got all the tools, it's there, but if the decision making isn't there, how high is his ceiling really, or what is his potential? And is he going to be that top pairing, amazing skating there, a guy who can be counted on all the time in all situations, or is he just going to be a really good skating bottom pair, reliable defenseman just because he can't score? If he can't develop that, and playing in Russia, I feel like it's a little bit harder to have control over your player's development. If you're worried about the holes in his game, I think he falls. I get why. I think the same reason that Matvei Michkov fell, because there are holes in his game, and it's harder to develop those players versus a guy like Dmitry Simashev, who's a much more well-rounded player.
And to conclude the first round, David Enstrom was picked by the Vegas Golden Knights. A guy that I had in my second round, I didn't think he would sneak up this high, but Vegas obviously saw something in him. And we all know he won't be a Vegas Golden Knight for long. No, I was kidding. Vegas is cup champions. They have the right pick to pick last, and they need to start refilling that cupboard a little bit. And they're still a new team. Their development system isn't as progressed as a lot of the other teams here, obviously, and still needs players. Big centerman. Strong.
And Edstrom's the kind of guy that if you're trying to build a new prospect pool, not only are they as a young team, they haven't been able to draft as much, but like you joked earlier, they've traded them all away. So they have the small pool that they've gotten rid of. Edstrom, very reliable. He's going to be an NHL player. He's going to be at least a third line center kind of guy. And for Vegas, you can kind of take a step back and say, hey, I don't have to worry about that kind of prospect. Our pool's grown. No risk here. I think it's just a great addition. It's a smart pick. Perfect pick for Vegas, in my opinion. And, if you're looking to stay competitive, I feel like that kind of player is the guy that you need to stay competitive.
Absolutely. In the second round, we're not going to talk about anybody. We're going to just kind of pick and choose who we're going to talk about here. I'm going to first select Adam Gajan here, 35th overall. It's the Chicago Blackhawks.
Skip Gavin Brindley and talk about being line mates with Adam Fantilli.
We can go back to him.
Go back. Okay.
That's my pick.
Okay.
It's my turn.
Your turn.
Slovakian goaltender. I don't know if he would have been the first goalie off my board for me, but played incredibly well for Slovakia at the World Junior Tournament. He plays over here. He plays for the Chippewa Steel of
the North American Hockey League.
He plays for the North American Hockey League and also
he was on loan.
The USHL. He was on loan. So he plays over here. He plays in North America is what I'm saying. And so he's already playing. He's already being a goaltender on North American ice. I think is people don't talk about it as much.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about the skaters and getting used to the big ice. When the ice shrinks as a goalie, all your angles change.
Oh, yeah.
Or a lot of your angles change, especially from out wide.
Yeah.
So you have to learn as a goalie, where to be and where the shots are coming from.
And the habits of shooters. Where are they going to shoot from?
Yeah, exactly.
Are they they're not making the same passing plays from the corner. They're not doing the same things because it's a different ice. It's all of these adjustments. And as a goalie, you do happen to sometimes rely a lot on habit, and they all got to change.
Yeah.
And playing here in North America is a big deal, mostly for goaltenders. You're absolutely right.
All right, who you want? Gavin Brindley?
Gavin Brindley. Back up to 34, because I think this is a big deal. It's a really good pick for Columbus, because he plays on the same line as Adam Fantilli, who I don't think they knew would fall into their lap. So I don't know if Columbus had big brain. They're going to be like, we knew this would happen. We knew both players would land to us. I really like Gavin Brindley. I don't think that there's incredible offensive upside there, but I think on a team like Columbus that values structure, he's going to have a role, and he's going to play it so well. He's going to be a great NHL player in that regard. And, chemistry. Regardless of if Brindley and Fantilli play in the NHL on the same line often or at all, coming into a new place, new sphere, having a familiar face, it's going to make it easier. Both players are going to come in that much more comfortable.
Yeah, something to be said about just the chemistry between line mates at the next level.
Mm-hmm.
It's important.
Mm-hmm. And I think I've noticed drafting in the past 10 years maybe, teams have kind of taken that more into consideration. They're being like, we're seeing the value in getting the chemistry, like it is a huge factor.
Who are we going to talk about next? Let's go to Kasper Halttunen real quick. San Jose Sharks, big power forward. I'm excited to watch him next year. I think he kind of got shafted in his ice time over in the Finnish league, the Mestis league. This shows his SM Liga numbers up here. It looks underwhelming, but there were whole games that he didn't play.
Yeah.
Kind of like where the KHL brings a guy and they send him out for one shift, and that's his game, technically, because he played.
Feet hurt, you're cold, you haven't played all day, just been sitting there with your head down, you're like, now get into the game. It's hard to just spark.
It's tough to just jump into it like that. So I hope next year is he plays a little bit more consistently, whatever area league he's playing in, more consistently. But I think San Jose might have had a really sneaky pick here.
And he's another candidate that I think would probably the best player to come over to North America. I don't remember if he's been chosen in the CHL import draft, but to have him come over and play in the juniors here, that would be a pretty good thing for him, I think. He needs a change of scenery as well.
All right, all you.
Michael Hrabel.
Michael Hrabel?
To Arizona. Who's the first-year draft eligible goaltender to be taken by Arizona, who is a team that absolutely, I think that they do have a lot of picks, and they've been taking guys that I think are great for the team. Hrabel, 6'6", a lot of potential here, and that's why he was taken, for his size. He's big, he blocks shots, he's like a wall out there, he gets in the way. For Arizona, you got to be happy. You got a lot of good future prospects that are going to build your team, because the team's falling apart right now. And, just to have a bunch of really good prospects right now, that's what you need.
I'll skip over a couple because I want to. Where'd he go? Augustine. Yeah. I'll skip over a guy I know we both want to talk about just to continue talking about the goalies. Trey Augustine. I think he's going to be the best goaltender in this class. I
Agreed.
think he's going to be better than both Hrabel and Guyan, but he's 6'1", so he was picked third. Right? But I think he's way too athletic. He has to be because of his size to make up for not being 6'6", but I think could end up being the best goaltender in this class. And Detroit picked the wrong goalie a few years ago.
Yes.
And when
Sebastian
they picked
Cossa.
Cossa over Wallstedt, when I was mad about that, and this year they redeemed themselves by taking Trey Augustine third, which is good.
Back up to Andrew Crystal. He is a player with probably the most skill falling out of the first round.
Yeah, the hardest drop.
Yeah,
I think.
I don't know if it was the hardest drop because
the amount of skill that he has. If you overlook some of the other things that he is wrong with his game, his ceiling is so high, and those guys normally go in the first round.
Yeah, but he would have been ranked here all year in my opinion.
Really?
Yeah, I had him here at the very I had him here in July of last year.
Yeah, July of last year, sure.
And for the same reasons, because I saw all the talent was there, but it's all up in his head. It's all the mental side of the game. He's putting himself in a corner, literally on the ice. He'll put himself in the corner with no escape because he just wants to do something. Doesn't want to make a safe pass, wants to do a high-risk play, and then it kind of falls on him. I think that when he starts to play bad, 3 games, 5 games, he plays bad for. He gets into slumps so easily, and just he never got over that mental side of his game. And where I had him ranked was here at the beginning of the year, and he just stayed. And I feel like that's exactly where teams said, hey, you got all the skill, but if you can't get over that, you're going to fall. I think we see it often, not every year, but there's always a couple guys that you say, hey, you could have been a first-round pick. What are you doing in the second, third? It's issue like this, the mental side of the game. And I think as general managers who get a little bit more insight, they see, it's not just, it's on off the ice, and we see it in these interviews too. When we talk to him, we see that the effort isn't there.
I just wanted to do a couple more here in the second round. I'll take I'll take Lukas Dragicevic. Lukas Dragicevic, 75 points in 68 games, all offense. This kid is a wicked offensive player and a liability defensively.
Very much so.
His skating is okay. I mean, like, he's not the best skater in the draft, obviously, but
he's not bad.
He's not a bad skater. People loop in skating to his defensive ability. His defense is atrocious, but his skating is okay. And I think he can learn defense.
Yeah. His skating stands out because he's so bad defensively. Yes. It's like, whoa.
If he was a plus skater, his defense might look a little better, and vice versa. If he was better defensive, he might be in a better positioning, and he doesn't have to move as far and not exposing his skating. But he's only been a forward for a few years. He's one of those rare cases where he was he's only been a defenseman for a few years. It was one of those cases when he was a forward growing up, and then they looked at him at 14 years old and went, no.
Yeah,
you played defense.
Really good defenseman.
You're a really good defenseman. So he's already behind, and it's hard to play defense.
Started to learn, and he started 4 or 5 years later than most kids start learning defense. So those habits you have to learn as a defenseman, being in the right spot, cutting, a lot of that is what we find his defensive flaws to be. He's making these small habit mistakes. He's overshooting the defenseman on the rush. He's cutting wide, giving up the open space down the middle. He's doing these small mistakes that are kind of childlike in a way. And that there's a lot of potential here, but at the same time, do you have the time and the patience to put that in for an offensive defenseman?
And Seattle does.
Yeah, Seattle does. They're a very young team trying to build up a prospect pool, and he's a guy that I think will fit very well.
Who do you want?
I was going to talk about Roman Kantsarov out of Chicago. A Chicago pick. I felt like Roman Kantsarov, you'll see on the screen, September 20th birthday. He is the oldest top prospect out of Russia, and I feel like that has always bit him. You can't tell by the stats here because HockeyDB does not have the Russian stats, but he did score a lot. He's gotten crazy stats, but a lot of that is because you look at his birthday, he's the oldest kid in his draft class. He was playing with a lot of guys a year older than him, great teammates, so he was able to rely a lot on his skill, and I felt like because of that, he was unable to develop a lot of the other side of his game. Doesn't back check very hard, not great in the corners, he's not hard on the stick, he's just really good in the offensive zone, on the cycle, and then taking a big shot. And at 5'9", if that's all you can do, you can't. In the NHL, obviously, we're seeing the trend where small players are capable of playing, but they need to be perfect. And Roman Kanserov just has so many holes, and I feel like the stats are just inflated from him being an older, more skilled player in the draft. And as we saw throughout the year, the younger players started to catch up to him. I feel like there has a lot. Alexander Rykov, for instance, taken by Carolina. Spoiler alert: he's a little bit better than Kanserov, another winger who probably should have gone sooner.
Anyone else in the second round catches your eye? I don't want to talk about everybody.
I know Bo Aki was the only pick by Edmonton in the first 4 or 5 rounds.
Yep.
He has a good high floor. I think this is a good pick for Edmonton.
Considering they didn't have many picks,
exactly,
and they
right.
to hit on a guy.
They need to hit on a guy. He's a guy that there's a lot of potential here. I think it's a really good pick for Edmonton. Guys that fell, you go like Riley Height at 64th overall to Minnesota. I know Minnesota was really happy to get him. Yep. And I talked earlier when they took Haltonen? No, not San Jose.
Stremmel?
That's Stremmel, yeah. That there's a lot of development, and they're able to get these middle six kind of guys the absolute best out of them. And I feel like all season I was expecting more out of Riley Height, and the team to get that out of him is Minnesota.
Yeah, great pick by them for sure. We'll briefly mention Grayson Sachin, picked 63rd by the Florida Panthers. Great pick for Florida here, not having a bunch of picks. Going far in the playoffs and spending a lot of that draft capital is a good guy for them to take. Was playing in the U.S. national development team apparently, and then came to the WHL.
Yeah.
So where you talked about before, an American coming into Canada's program, the WHL played really well out there.
He is actually Canadian though. Then he went to the U.S. and then came back because he said, "You know what? Didn't like that."
So I know a lot of people were really high on him, and people were ranking him as high as like in the high teens. Mm-hmm. So getting him here at 63 is kind of incredible. Who else we got? Who do you want to play?
Noel Nord for Arizona, because there are not a lot of Swedish prospects this year. I don't know if people have kind of noticed, but Leo Carlson, Theo Lindstein, Otto Stenberg, it kind of falls off after that. And I got that really early at Helinka when I watched this team, and they were atrocious. And Noel Nord was one of the few standouts. He's big and knows how to use his body, loves to fight along the boards, really good on the stick, hard on the puck. And another guy for Arizona that I don't really see the upside here. I think maybe third round, he probably could have fallen a little bit more, but he's a guy that for Arizona I think is a great pick because he's going to play in the NHL and he's going to be a really impact player on an energy line kind of for the team, and Arizona just needs that kind of player. He's going to be great for them.
Matthew Cataford. Love this player. 77 to Vegas. He played in Halifax, the QMJHL. Just ticks a lot of boxes for me. He just seems... watching him play just plays like a professional hockey player. And I don't know how to explain it other than vibes. Matthew Cataford for the Vegas Golden Knights. Great pick.
And I think...
all the way at 77. I have him... was he in my first round?
I think so.
He made a snuck into my first round.
Oh, he's in your second.
Oh, yeah, he was in my second.
And I think the only reason he fell, he shouldn't have, but he didn't have a great playoffs, and I think maybe teams thought he, didn't play so well under pressure, but you know what? He has all the skill. Just, you can't go so hard on a teenager for maybe not playing so under pressure. Also, it's often the team. Vegas is a team that drafted very well.
Yeah. What else you got?
I talk about Caden Price to Seattle, talking about them developing their core of defensive prospects. I think at Caden Price, while a lot of us at the beginning of the year expected a little bit more from him, I expected him to maybe be an early second round, maybe a riser. He didn't quite show all of it, but there's definitely like a hidden potential there in him. Yeah, there's something there where he's a little bit of a project pick, I think, in my opinion. But for Seattle, they could use a few of those where they're like, yeah, test out our development program. Let's swing high on a couple of guys that fell in the draft. We're going to take them, get the best out of them. Let's get an NHL player out of the third
Jaden Perron fell all the way to 94. We were, during the day 2 of the draft, we were screaming when this guy was going to be picked or if they just forgot about him. Jaden Perron, 94th to the Carolina Hurricanes. And of course, Carolina picks him up. Of course. They're like, you know what? It stops here with us. 72 points, 61 games. Little smaller on the smaller side. That's why he fell. 5'9", 163 pounds. But
a lot of offensive upside.
A lot of skill. And he could be, again, another guy that they let fall that far. And then he's still good offensively in the NHL. But he's 5'9", so how dare he? Right?
Yeah. And Carolina, as usual, willing to take the best player available that other teams are sleeping on and just saying, I like him, but no. And Carolina being like, okay, fine, we'll take the best player then.
Yeah.
Enjoy your loser. R2 Karki, 96th overall to Vegas. There is no stats because Hockey DB, because we should have used elite prospects, but great info here.
This is great info.
He
plays defense.
There's a lot of offensive upside. I feel like he didn't get quite the chances that he should have. It is very hard to play D, and he is a guy that could have been a riser or faller, and I think that there's still a lot of potential there. All year he showed that he's very capable. Vegas with another pick here that I think we were talking earlier about them training away a lot of their future prospects. He's one that is, he's very high risk, high reward, that if he gets to the NHL level and is able to put all his skills, he's going to be that second pairing guy that I think can make a serious impact in a playoff run.
I'll take Florian Jacki next, which is just hilarious. If you're wondering, how does he have the same name? That's weird. It's his brother.
It is. Arbor Jacki's brother.
Arbor Jacki's brother, who was also obviously a Montreal Canadian, took his brother Florian here. 6'2", 25 points in 68 games. Little bit of a weird pick. And I think this is definitely them going, yeah, fine, we'll take his brother.
Which, in my opinion, is a huge mistake. Because
consider how high he took him.
Yeah, Florian Jacki would have probably gone undrafted. There is not huge upside on him. His game is very, very, very limited to like a bottom six, bottom pairing, fourth line, kind of just physical energy guy. His brother is the better prospect. Florian isn't, and I think for a team like Montreal that really needs to be developing their future, is a little bit of a wasted pick. I do think he's a great kid, but in the fourth round for Montreal, this isn't the time to do it. This is the time for a team that's currently winning to kind of just say, hey, I like him.
Yeah, really funny pick there.
One before him, Alexander Rykov to Carolina. I was mentioning earlier, we don't have his MHL or VHL stats here, but he might be one of the more dynamic forwards offensively. I feel like that dropped. I don't know why he was going to drop. He scores a lot. He's got all the talent. He can skate. He can shoot. He's got the hands, but maybe the Russia factor plays in here. We always see it. A guy like last year, Gleb Traikozov, as much hype as there is, he's got all the skill, but missing a couple things. Russia factor. Carolina, though, willing to say, hey, we'll take the best player available because Rykov absolutely could have been a second-round pick.
Yeah, and then people
probably should have gone the second.
And then a few years from now, we'll wonder how Carolina keeps getting away with it. They just keep picking the right guys. They have a great scouting staff over there. Anyone else in the third that you saw? Good.
Ottawa's first draft pick, Hoyt Stanley. I actually kind of like this pick. The BCHL, myself, I admit, I don't get to scout enough. Victoria Grizzlies are one of the better teams, and Hoyt Stanley's the type of defenseman that Ottawa seems to be drafting in the later rounds. They've done a lot of between the third and seventh drafting. I like to call them towers, just really big, solid defensive defenseman. Hoyt Stanley, he's got upside on him. I definitely think there's more to his game than just that. So I think he kind of fits that Ottawa Senator style mold. And a lot of scouts were kind of high on him. Like, I think that he kind of dropped. I'm a little bit surprised. I think it's the BCHL factor. Teams are willing to take the top 2 or 3 out of a junior A league. But once you start to go past that, it's a little bit more questions because as a defenseman, what's the level of talent that this player's facing? Defensively, are they being challenged? Am I seeing them at their best? Am I seeing their true potential? The BCHL is hard, so I'm not surprised he fell. I'm glad Ottawa took a chance on him.
My boy Jesse Nurmi, 113th overall of the New York Islanders. Again, stats on HockeyDB, we suck. But
he scored a lot. He was the
scored
highest scoring Finn, I believe, in this of this draft class.
Yeah, just great offensive potential with the Cuckoo system, Guovola system. Yeah, I just want to point him out. I think he's going to be good in a few years. He's kind of my one way off the board selection. I think I had him in my second round for lulz.
I don't.
I had him in there just not from ranking, just as a mock draft to like shout him out because I think he's a good player. He's underrated, I think. Chernik?
Yeah, Alex Chernik.
Alex Chernik.
With Slovak, who I think we all thought would be a lot higher in this draft.
A lot higher than 120. Oh my god! But Philadelphia again lucks into a guy, right? I thought he was incredible at the World Juniors for Slovakia. Very instrumental to that team's success from a junior perspective over the last couple of years, and going to continue to be. He's going to be again over there in the winter. Philadelphia gets a really good player here.
This is another one of the few cases where we disagree on a player.
Yeah,
I watched Chernik and I found his game to just be underwhelming.
I don't know, man.
I felt it very.
He did all the little things right.
He does all the little things right, but
which is hard to find in a guy this young.
It is, and in the fourth round, this is where you start to take guys. But that's why I think he was drafted in the right spot. I don't think he should have gone higher. A lot of people had him in like the second round, and instead of saying he's the next, like he's gonna be this, he's the greatest two-way. He's good. He does all the little things, but I don't see the crazy upside. I totally understand why he fell. I think this is just a good pick for Philly. He's the right spot. I think teams are right to let him slide.
Fair enough.
Luca Cagnoni. He's one I'm surprised fell a little bit. A lot of offensive upside here.
Again, size, 5'9".
And as a defenseman, you can't be this small.
Yeah, especially as a defenseman. 64 points in 67 games, put up offense, but he's a 5'9" defenseman. That's tough.
So if you're San Jose, you're Mike Grier, this is his second draft, finally gone through one full year as a GM. He's building his team the way he wants it. I feel like Luca Cagnoni's a guy with a lot of upside, high risk, high reward. If he hits at the NHL level, he's going to smack it out of the park. But definitely a risk. But for San Jose, that's kind of something you need in your system, to have a guy like him who, he's going to be pushing the edge offensively. And they do have, an offensive defenseman right now, just won the Norris, who maybe can kind of teach some of this young core coming in how to play effectively.
If he stays there.
If he stays there throughout the rest of his contract. We'll see.
Who else? We're already down here to Cameron Allen. 134th. 6th. I can't read. 136th overall to the Washington Capitals. It doesn't even have his OHL stats.
It doesn't have his OHL stats on HockeyDB. HockeyDB, get your shit together.
This isn't the right person.
Oh.
They took Cameron Allen of the Guelph Storm.
Oh, this is Cameron Allen of the Kirkland Lake Gold Miners in the North Ontario
not the
Junior
right,
Hockey League.
Yeah, this is supposed... They have it right here, but I guess the link into Cameron Allen, that's not the right Cameron Allen. But...
We're Guelph Storm fans.
We're biased on him.
But
he had a terrible season. He was probably one of the biggest droppers. He plummeted. He was in some people's top 10s at the start of the year. He plummeted out in the draft. And Washington... He's going to have a good player.
They got a good player here. He a right shot D. He plays very big. You read his size. Sometimes it says 5'11". Sometimes it says 6 feet. Plays like he's 6'2", 6'3". Kind of reminds me of Aaron Ekblad out there. Doesn't have the super top end potential. But he's got a shot. He's got the hands. He's got the speed. He moves it. He's poised. When we watch Guelph play, we're both Guelph fans. We watch them live, so it's easier to watch these D. you see the maturity in his game. We're watching guys, a year or two ago, we're watching Guelph play, we're watching him play, and we see, look, who's that guy? Because we think he's draft eligible. He's playing so much
we're
better.
Missing someone off
right?
the list.
Yeah, because he's playing so much better than the draft eligible skaters a year older than him. And that in him hasn't gone anywhere. The team around him has really sucked. Guelph had a really shitty year. Just until the end, they kind of picked it up, but it didn't really click and didn't really matter, didn't really help. He's the guy that expect next year to have an incredible season. And everybody, like you said, be like, oh, well, how did this guy fall? We all should have been so high. Everybody knew, but he fell. What was that all about? Like, Washington got a great prospect here.
Yeah. I skipped one. Shout out to Marcel. I don't know. I don't want to spend too much time on him. He was good for Czechia, sorry. Same country a few years ago. Czechia, and in the World Juniors, he had 6 points in 7 games for them in the World Juniors this year. I just want to shout out. Fun name.
I don't know how much upside there is, but he's a good player. There's a chance that he reaches the NHL, and at this point in the draft, you're kind of throwing, guys you think that there's that 1 or 2 factor that might get them to that level. He definitely has a chance.
Scott Ratzlaff, the Buffalo Sabre now goalie. He's 6'1", so he dropped all the way to 141st overall. Seattle Thunderbirds goalie. Great season for them. In WHL, he played great for Team Canada when he was on that team, and the U18s, or Ivan Hlinka, one or the other. Great goalie. He's the best Canadian goalie in this draft, I think, over Bjarnason, who we didn't talk about. But dropped all the way down here because goalies in size, man, I'm telling you.
Mikhail Ilyin, 142 to Pittsburgh. He's a guy that, because he played for Cherepovets in the KHL, nobody scouted him at all. And I have a feeling this is not Pittsburgh's scouting department pick. This is Kyle Dubas. And we've seen, if you go look at Toronto's past draft years under Kyle Dubas, they've done very, very, very specific drafting on players in Russia. This is one of those picks.
Yeah, one of those, he might have been part of a meeting while he was in Toronto, and he just remembered this name and going, you know what, this might be our guy here.
Right, if you're talking
142.
Right, and as far as Russian skaters, he's in the top 10 for the best of them. But I feel like he completely overlooked by every other scout because he's not on SKA. He's not one of the top guys. He's not Rykov. He's not Simishev. He's not Michkov. It's the Michkov year for Russia. You need to scout deep in Russia. Dubas has. I feel like this is a name he carried with him and said, hey, he's a guy who could probably have been a 2nd or 3rd round pick if he was scouted better. Fell to us in the 5th. This is a gem for Pittsburgh.
He's a gem for, like, you're playing NHL 23 and he's got a little
gem
beside him.
Yeah.
I'm down with that. Anyone else?
Timur Mukanov.
Timur Mukanov.
Speaking of Carolina taking the best player available, he is very small. He can play center. He'll probably be a winger. I don't know if at his size, that's why he fell. But
he's
real small. But he scores a real lot.
Yeah.
So that's why he fell. I know there's a lot of hype around him. He's Omsky. Omsky's a team that's gotten a lot of hype the past few years after developing out Gleb Trykazov, who's drafted by Carolina as well. Carolina proving once again that they're also willing to dip into Russia, because not only do I feel like they go unscouted, they go undrafted a lot. These skaters, if it wasn't for the politics behind it, the contracts, inability to control these players, they'd be going a lot higher. Carolina willing to take that risk, and when a few of them hit hard, he might be one of them. At 5'7", I know he's small, but he can bring a lot of game too.
Absolutely. And we'll just keep dropping down. There's not really many really notable guys.
Thomas Urinen to Vegas at 192, the last pick in round 6. He's another guy. I feel like Finland, the top prospects that we looked at early on in the season, a lot of them didn't get their chance. Thomas Urinen's one of them. He absolutely does have that upside in him, high risk, high reward for a team like Vegas that's rebuilding their prospect pool. He's a guy that I think swinging on is worth it. 6th round pick. Urinen could, he was thought of to be the 2nd or 3rd round pick early in the season. I still think that there is some ability there for him to be a pretty good NHL player one
day. Luke Middlestat. We'll throw him in there.
Because as an above-ager, brother of Casey Middlestat, I was wondering when this one happened, I was about to say, not a lot of above-agers in this draft. As many as I'd thought early.
Well, especially early. Last year we saw Dmitry Pechelnikov go in the second round.
Yeah.
And, you don't see that very often, and we went back to normal this year. But yeah, this defenseman, this brother of Casey Middlestat, Buffalo Sabres forward. This is a defenseman, Luke. Plays in the University of Minnesota. Had a decent year. He had a good enough year to get drafted. Yeah. And I think a lot of people thought he would be drafted already. The fact that he wasn't was strange, but all the way in the 7th round, Montreal comes and takes a chance on him. 197th overall. They got a lot of defensemen, obviously, in that system, so he's behind. He's got a lot of guys to jump over on the depth chart, but could be a sneaky pick for them as an overager, closer to the NHL than some of maybe the other guys they're drafting at 17. Yeah. Maybe a short-term guy that they're looking at. I know we were going to talk about the last guy. Was there anybody?
Emil Järventie.
Oh, Emil Järventie.
At 217.
Of course.
He can score. He can rip the puck. He is the brother of Roby Järventie, who is an Ottawa Senators player. I'm really surprised that Ottawa didn't draft him to have both.
Me too.
They're both different styles of player. Roby Järventie's like 6'3". He's big. He's huge. Emil Järventie, he's 5'10". He's smaller. Plays a very different skill style of game. Falling to Pittsburgh though, pretty good draft. He can score. I feel like Pittsburgh, they're developing some pretty good scoring talent out of this draft. I really like what they've done. And he's a name as well that out of Finland, another name that dropped, one of those second, third, maybe rounders. So I don't know if maybe there's something in development. Maybe this year's something about scouting, or who knows. But there's a lot of Finns that fell that I feel like have a lot more upside. So watch out.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about the last pick in the draft. Always have that title. Tyler Peddle, who a lot of people thought he would have gone by then.
At the beginning of the year, he was my number one player out of the queue. And then he goes last in the draft.
Yeah. And this was Columbus trading in. This was originally Vegas's pick.
Yep.
And they traded next year's 7th for this 7th, so they really wanted this guy. And
I like him.
I like him too.
He is a scorer. There's upside. I feel like he's missing a lot of this game.
For his last pick in the draft, though.
Yeah, this is a steal for last pick in the draft. Absolutely 100%. This is a great last pick in the draft because he's going to get a chance in the NHL. Yeah. He's going to get a goal in the NHL. He is a goal scorer.
Last picks of the draft to see what they did.
Yeah.
But
Patrick Hornquist.
Patrick Hornquist leads that list, being the last pick in the draft. But
Tyler Peddle is going to add his
name. Could play an NHL game. Could be add to the list of last picks who have played in the NHL. So good for Tyler Peddle. Good for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So I think had a pretty good day. And is there anyone else we want to talk about here?
There's obviously we can keep going. There's 200 more names.
Yeah, we can talk about way more people, but
But this has already been an hour and a half long video, so this is your chance, you the viewer. Let us know down below who we missed, who are the big names that you're like, yeah, that guy was a steal, you didn't talk about him. This guy you were wrong about. This guy I want to highlight too because he's a great pick, or what your team thought, how they did. As we move on to our tier list.
Yeah, I think actually we should do a separate video for that.
Huh?
We'll do a recap, and then we'll specifically do a smaller video with the tier list. We'll do it that way. So look out for that coming right out after this video. Probably we're gonna transition into a basically a winners and losers list. So it's gonna be a separate video on this channel very soon. Look out for that. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like on this video and the next video, and subscribe for more Dope Hockey content. Peace.